I think I got it that time. Oh, that was so much fun. That was so fulfilling. See, that's what's so great about being a musician. It just takes a little bit for me. Like just anything, I'm there. It's awesome. Air drums, I'm in. Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. My name is Chase Steele Gray. If this is your first time joining us ever, I am a musician, a photographer, an engager, a podcast host. I have been to Daily Huddle for, wow, over a year and something right now. Um, just want to give you a little brief background about me. I love being here. I love engaging with people. And whoever brought you here today, thank them because they must really care about you. This is a very special environment. Today, I have a special woman here on the show. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her first. That makes more sense. Lara Augusta, a Brazilian native, leverages her global experiences and expertise in neuroscience and psychology to offer personalized coaching and training. With a background in international relations and rich career in corporate training, she focuses on personal and professional development across various industries. Lara's approach is multicultural, multi-passionate, deeply influenced by her travels to over 57 countries. Impressive. She is committed to enhancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and positive intelligence, aiming to foster self-awareness, joy, and satisfaction in her clients' lives. Welcome to the Daily Huddle, Lara Augusta.
Again, thank you for having me.
That's a good intro. That was colorful. I used all the pieces of my lips and my tongue to say that. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
I noticed. I
I like
noticed there
that.
were good words.
That's like a that's like a vocal warm-up. I might have to keep that and just kind of open up with that. So before we get started, I just want to let everyone know how Lara and I met because it's very it's emotional to me actually how we met, and I want to give you a little piece of that before we go into it. I've known Lara under a year now, and we met because I was singing in a very active New York City area called Union Square, and I was singing Imagine, correct? And I don't know. I had a moment. Lara appeared. She was smiling like she knew me. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, I felt this energy come towards me like a warm blanket, like over my body. And she just moved forward towards me and she sat as close as she could possibly sit to me. It was unbelievable. There was like a rock there. And I don't know what happened, but I got emotional during the time when I saw her as I was singing. It was partially her, it was partially the message. And then she told me that the message I was sending out affected her. And this kind of synergy took place, and it was just right exactly what it needed to be. And I felt like this is a person who is in my tribe. She's part of my tribe. I have to know her. So I I had to start with that. I can go long-winded on that because I have so much more to say about that. But Lara, what was going on in that first moment for you, just briefly before we get into the topic? Because I thought it was just mind-blowing, really mind-blowing.
Hmm. Ah, I value so much true connectedness.
Hmm.
That that day I was feeling challenged throughout the day through multiple personal relationship dynamics
Right,
in which I felt like, when you just get to a point in which you're like, I'm exhausted with like how we don't always meet each other and there are so many misalignments sometimes and it just
right.
feels like each person fully respect and understand and have compassion for people's different timings and journeys and all of that, but it was a particularly challenging day on that and frustrating one. And I was rushing, actually I was lost, number one, because I live in New Jersey. I live in New York. And I was rushing actually to get to a very small group gathering with Deepak Chopra.
Well, that
And
happens. We all meet Deepak every now and then.
it just so happened that day. Yes, that was one of those days. And as I was trying to find my way to get to where I needed to in order to join that group, um, I heard you, and it really deeply touched me because of that Well, the message, number one, and it was energy, really it was. The whole like, wow, just imagine being out of those barriers, out of those intrigues and
Right.
the challenging bickering stuff and all of that. Whatever it is that gets well through the song, expressed in ways that once it scales up, it can become like so much more damaging or so much more healing and so much more unifying. And I had to sit present with that, which
Yes.
is why I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter where I'm heading right now. I don't even know which direction I'm going. I'm late for it, but it was like I'll sit here because this is what I need right now before I I join. What's next. So that's somewhat
Yeah.
briefly,
We
what
I,
was
I literally think that we could talk about this on another episode because there's a lot here to unpack. And I don't mean that in a joking way. Like it's so much happened in that moment that we're gonna get to that another time. So thank you for briefly saying that. So as far as this topic, right? Are wellness trends misleading us from our true health fulfillment? Give me an example of some wellness trends that just pop into your head right now that people are ingesting currently, like in this moment.
What I've been observing and experiencing myself as well is people seeking more time with themselves away from their routines.
Right.
So, retreats, really. Everybody wants in-person connection, but not just an opportunity to have that connection with someone else, but to have an opportunity to have a connection with themselves away from everything that brings them into the autopilot, which is
Right.
usually the roles that they get to fulfill in life throughout their daily routines. It's either the parent or the friend or the professional or the child, like whatever role you're fulfilling in life that you've been going on about on autopilot, most likely. I've been noticing more and more people feeling more drawn to and open to taking time away. And sometimes even they are not able to take whatever, like 4 or 5 days or a week or however many days away or outside of country. They'll seek for smaller versions of those moments that they can take away from their routines in order to be able to reconnect with themselves and likely with others as well, if it's a structured environment for that as well.
Right. I feel like, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, when you talk about people trying to find more time, I think many times people forget that we don't have to get more time. We can actually take away some stuff that's taking our time. It's like, oh, didn't think about that. Like people are always talking about the phone, right? About a week ago, my phone went out from 8 in the morning until about 12. It was some AT&T thing. I could feel the tension on the train of the people. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was upset, so on and so forth. And I thought to myself, I personally have 2 no phone days a month, right? I don't use my phone for an entire day. It's crazy when I turn my phone back on. It's like people thought I died. You know what I mean? And when we talk about the wellness trends, I also think it can be overwhelming. There's so many things right now that are trying to help us, right? Incidentally, just a little plug. Um, I was on your podcast that I really want everyone to listen to, and I listened to the conversation that you had with the woman with the crazy long name about the not the CBD, but what was the name of the
Oh, Inessa, yes.
Inesta. And I was blown away by that, right? And we can talk about that another time. But please, we'll put the information in for Lara's podcast. Things like that connected with watching that episode. There was like a personal development uh, message in that as well, because you know people tell you to do things to be well,
Hmm.
but they don't know you, and they don't know that that thing might not be good for you, and you could take it or do it or connect to it and be like, that's crap, I didn't like it. And that's okay. That's you, right? You did that for you. This woman was told, well, good luck with that. No one's going to be able to do that. Well, it's been tried before. Oh, you might not have the money to do that. Oh, yeah, when you get that done, you let me know. And she did it. She did it. She's saving lives. She saved her mother's life. Like, it's just incredible. And I'm like, in your particular, uh, I want to say line, in your particular passion or your way of being, um, what are some wellness trends that have worked for you, or something that's going on right now with you? Because you speak to a lot of people, you engage with a lot of interesting people who are living at a high level of wellness, of intellect. What works for you right now?
There are a few questions in there.
I'm shooting them out. I'm shooting them out, Laura. I'm shooting them out. You got to catch one of them.
Number one, I'd like to address what you mentioned, further highlight what you started with when it comes to like, it's not necessarily finding time, but rearranging
Right.
really your priorities throughout your day, which eventually compounds and it becomes your if you plan it well enough, it becomes what you choose to be your priorities throughout your week, your month, your year, and they will be different throughout different phases of your life. We put too much pressure on ourselves with the whole like work-life balance, which is a term that I'm like usually resistant a little bit.
Tricky one. Yeah.
Um, uh, Basically, because the reality of things is that we will have different priorities throughout our day. We will have different priorities throughout our week, our month, our year,
Right.
at different times of our lives. And that's okay. It's just like this constant, um, but are you doing it with awareness? Are you doing it with the acknowledgement that that's what you need first and foremost, that is your priority throughout that period of your life. And that kind of investigation, self-investigation, self-awareness, only comes if you're doing your due diligence. It's like your spring break, not
Right.
spring break, your spring cleaning. Right?
Right. Right.
Do you do that often enough with yourself? Do you sit with yourself often enough to ask yourself the questions? What are the priorities in my life right now? What's important to me right now? And how does that translate into what's important for those I care for? And how can we arrange that in a way that it's both fitting to me and fitting to others as per what I choose
Right.
it to, right? So are you living life under your own terms? Do you examine that often enough?
Mhm.
And that would be like the number one trend that I'm seeing most of the exchanges that I have with clients, with friends, and all of that. It's like, do I spend enough time asking myself the right questions in order to be able to have better answers to what truly, truly matters to me, to what truly works for me? Now, yes, we have like a bunch of people out there, I mean, myself included, offering a bunch of different choices and options and opportunities for people to tap into what might work for them, what might be important for them. But those are meant to be um, inspiration or motivation. They're not necessarily what you get to choose. Or if you do get to choose, it's not necessarily what works for you. How will you know? Well, I felt drawn to try this out. I felt open and curious enough to explore that. Have at it.
Right.
But other than that, you won't get to know yourself well enough if you're not open and curious enough you, with yourself, like becoming your own laboratory. Like, what can I experiment with, knowing that I have all these options and all these offers and all these opportunities out there?
Right.
Because we can either get paralyzed by the amount of options, or we can get paralyzed by thinking there are none.
Hmm.
And it's also a mindset to know that challenges, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, or triggers, or
Yes.
things that get thrown at us, that it's a mindset to know, a mindset shift to know that those are opportunities for growth. They're not hindering you from your growth unless you choose to feel paralyzed by what you think it's lack of choices, or by you think it's like one too many of them.
Hmm.
But Am I answering your
Yes, yes.
lately
It's
your
just
questions?
the topic is very the topic is very it's deep and it's multifunctional. So it's
Yes.
we're going in and out of things. The thing that sits right in the front of my brain that um, that is a wellness trend, I think is the opposite. I want to say I realize that the topic is what's misleading us, but I think sometimes we feel misled because we're comfortable in our cocoon, right? Like for example, I have never in my life heard the words plant-based more consistently ever, right? I've been 90% plant-based for multiple years now, right? 80 to 90% because um, it works for me. I'm high energy. I'm moving all the time. I don't want to be weighed down by a lot of things that are processed, right? However, it's interesting because, and this is where we're talking about like, well, I'm not feeling healthy, or someone says I'm not feeling healthy. They are so ready to push against me when I talk to them about it because they come to me and they ask me like, "Oh, you've been doing this for a long time. What do you think?" And as soon as I say something, they go, "Well, that's yeah, I need this at Thanksgiving, or I can't. No, I'm not going to do that." And in that way, and I'm looping this to the topic, it's like, am I the person who's misleading the person? Like, am I telling them something that's making them like, I'm upset because you're talking to me about that. Just let me eat my burger and let me drink my Diet Coke and I'm like, wow. So it creates like this chasm sometimes because I'm more quiet about it now. Like when people ask me, I'll say something to them or I'll give them a suggestion. I'll say, may I just, I want you to try this, check this out, or whatever. Very light, very easy. Not as like, I've never been like this kind of Hitler person about it because I don't think that that's fluid. But in your line of passions and kind of forward motion, um, do you think that there really does exist a trend or two right now that may be marketed in a misleading fashion? Like something that this, and then it's really not? Does that exist?
Hmm.
I'm wondering. I'm thinking of the things that I hear about right now, and I'm wondering,
What comes up for you? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily follow trends, although I'm
right,
informed in multiple areas.
right, right.
But I'm sensing there's something specific in your mind as you're trying to mention. What's coming up for you? What have you been seeing in your environment, or what have you been exposed to?
You know what it is? It's just things that come about within mostly the food consumption area, right? Let's if we're just talking about that, there's a big concentration now on gut health and on things that are connected with plant-based and people who are doing this and that. It's all kind of to the gut, which I think is a great thing too. I think it's great that we're concentrating on that because it's an important part of our system, a really important part that we don't realize we've messed up over time, right? So, what's the term? The food? Oh, it's not coming to me right now. What's the thing? The food ingredient or the food thing that people are saying? Oh, is this such and such free? What's that word? Um,
GMO?
what'd you say?
Non-GMO? Or
Gluten. Thank you. I like gluten.
gluten-free?
Gluten.
Okay.
I've never heard the word gluten more times in a 3-year period in my entire life, ever. Right? Is this gluten free? Does that have gluten? What about the gluten? And I'm like, wow, we are all connected to some sort of media. That word has been placed in our brain 8,000 times over the last, so on and so forth. Yet, if you ask somebody what gluten is, they have no idea. They have no idea. What is it? Oh, the gluten, it messes with me. I'm like, okay. And that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. That's why I bring up like some things that are misleading. If you
Right.
know something is in your body and it's affecting you, and the doctor says you have high levels of XYZ, they told you. Okay, we have a lot of things that we're consuming now that are gluten free, or then it turns around where someone eats something and they go, "Oh, that must have had gluten in it," because they got sick. And you were saying earlier, like, we have to learn to be our own laboratory, right? What makes us feel good? What makes us not feel good? So on and so forth. Let's take you, for example. You're a healthy woman. You always look great. Your skin looks great. You seem very calm. You seem very focused about your direction. She's like, no, stop. Come on, no, stop. But for you, let me just ask you specifically, um, what is it about the wellness for you? What are some takeaways that we can learn from you, wellness wise? You're like, this works for me, Chase. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Follow me?
Thank you, Holly. Yes, you're right. So one of the reasons why I asked you back that question is like, number one, I am no nutritional
Right.
expert, and the knowledge that I have with it's the one that I get to play with.
Mhm.
Um, and what works for me, it's not to be hell bent over anything.
Right.
That's what it does. And I have dealt with clients before in which I mean, they were also being followed by doctors and nutritionists on that
Right.
aspect with the specific case in which you mentioned with like gut health issues. And a lot of it, they were tied to, I don't know if you've heard the term before, like psychosomatic. It's
Yes.
like they're tied to emotions with how
Right.
they feel towards things. And often enough, number one, we don't have a wide enough vocabulary for our emotions. We grow up learning sad, maybe anxious,
Right.
um, angry, happy,
Right.
excited, but we
So
don't
much.
have like a really wide um, variety of to name it, to tame it, or to understand ourselves better as we're processing things. Now, what do we call things with, for such a long time? And I'll tell you, this is my own, and there are lines of schools out there and discussions around this, but I'll claim this as my own experience and interpretation of it. Um, Not that I'm knowledgeable enough on it, but like that it's mine. That we always say that our thoughts produce, it's been said so often that our thoughts produce our feelings and emotions, but we don't often distinct what's really feelings and emotions, or even like a layer under it, which is sensations.
Mm,
We're picking up on sensations throughout our entire day, but
100%.
way, way, way much more that our brain can process,
100%. Yep.
far beyond what our brains can process. And so when we start processing those sensations, we create stories around those sensations. Number one, it's through our instinct, right? Am I safe feeling this chill, or this, or am I safe feeling this cold, or am I safe feeling this energetic pinpoint on what you said, like my stomach? You do. We have like that gut reaction. It's visceral to
Right. Of
certain situations.
course. Yeah.
So number one, am I safe? Am I not safe? Do I need to run? Can I stay? And then number two, like you're going to start attaching stories to it. And once you start producing those thoughts around it based on your previous experiences, on your narratives, on projections, on predictions, on all of that, again, still trying to work your survival
Mm,
and your safety out of that. So
right.
it's very basic. You may develop feelings and emotions towards those narratives, towards those thoughts, towards the creations and the expectations and the narratives and the projections and all of that. And which is what we can work with. We can work with like changing how you feel towards a story you create.
Right.
What emotions do you attach to the narratives you've
Right.
entertained in your mind?
Hmm.
And that does change your body chemicals.
Of
That
course. Yeah.
does change what kind of hormones you release within your body as
Yeah.
a response to those.
Of course. Yeah.
And I mean, releasing cortisol, which is a stress hormone within your body, is super fun. I don't call things like negative or positive or anything, but like releasing that within your body. If you need to pull a child under out of your car, yeah, go
Yeah,
for it. You
yeah,
need that. Release that.
right,
You need that jolt of like energy and really like a timely reaction to that and the adrenaline and whatever else, right?
right.
That's going to serve you there. But long term, if you're constantly reacting to things with the storyline that I'm not safe, I need to like fend for myself, out of the way or my highway. If I don't get this done, nobody else will, like, etc. And whatever other like stories that go on and on and on in a lot of people's minds throughout the days. That's chronic stress.
Of
That
course.
doesn't serve you. So, all to say that, regardless, again, I'm not an expert on nutrition, but I don't overthink. Kind of going back to your question, because it was a nutrition specific, like I don't overthink what I eat,
Mhm.
especially because I travel a lot and I can't be going into like multiple countries and multiple different scenarios. Like I was in the Amazon forest last year. I was in Botswana last year,
Right,
and so I'm like, I can't be going into different places and thinking like, oh, what if I get sick? But what if I'm gonna brush my teeth, I'm gonna like get this. That is creating anxiety, that is lowering my immune system,
right.
that is putting my body into chronic stress. And it will react that way. It's gonna manifest what I'm like flipping about.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to stop you right there because there's so much for us to talk about. It would be my pleasure to have you back again. Number one, I want to make sure if anyone has any questions for you. And number two, um, give us just a little quick um, information piece about what you're doing right now with people, with clients. I think we have in the um, bio about how people can get in touch with you, but what is your main concern right now, your main focus?
It's helping people go through integration phases. So that's what I've been doing now, mostly with my one-on-one clients. I
Mhm.
don't yet offer workshops.
Okay.
I have my podcast, which is called In Strides.
Love it. I love the podcast. I really love it.
And yeah, it's about us learning how to live life on our own terms with as opposed to according to the expectations of everyone else about what our lives are supposed to be like.
Right.
And at which point of your life did you review that for yourself and find and redirect it, right?
Correct.
To make sure
Correct.
that it's your life and not someone else's that you're living. So that's what the podcast is about, which is a passion project. And I've been working with 3 corporate clients as well, but mostly what I'm noticing within those environments is that people are genuinely feeling disconnected from themselves,
Hmm.
and that no longer suffice. So they're extremely high achieving individuals who are at that point of their lives in which they decided like this no longer is worth it to me.
Right.
So what is it? So it's like they're rewriting what's important to them. So that's what I've been helping them focus on.
Excellent. Excellent.
And that's through my company, Embracing Potentiality.
Love it. Two of my favorite words together. So great.
And helping out with transitions and integration because
Yeah.
we go through a lot of experiences and people have courses, they have access to learning the
Right.
whole time.
Right.
And they go oh, so many workshops and courses, etc., but they don't have enough time to do the integration and how it actually applies to them, how it actually applies to what they choose to do with that in life, at work, and all of that. So that's what I've been mostly
Okay.
focusing on.
Well, I'm going to direct people to your In Strides podcast because I think it's very informative. It's more of a long form podcast. You know, I have a podcast as well. Mine is a shorter one, but the deep dive is great. I love it. So everyone, please connect with Lara. Am I saying that right? Augusta? Augusta?
Yeah.
from Brazil. And go there and listen to some of these topics because they're great, they're informative, they're engaging. I learned so much. I literally had my pen and I was writing while I listened to that podcast. It was really, I really loved it. But I'm a podcast guy. I love podcasts. I don't think I've ever had a daily huddle where there were no questions. So that was interesting. But that just means that people were listening and we were pushing out a lot of information, and that's fine. Sometimes it works like that. Every person is different, right? Before we leave today, I want to go over our tenets that we always leave with before we go on about our lives, right? First, to love more than you think you should, more than you have in the past. Live out loud to your highest potential. Laugh. Oh my gosh, laughter is so important. I laugh every day. I make sure that I'm laughing at some point, right? Move your body. Move, walking, running, biking, swimming, yoga. Keep your body in motion the way that is fitting for you. Living in New York City, I have no problem with that. None at all. Oh my gosh, you have no idea. Eat mostly plant-based. There's that plant-based again. Give it a shot, right? You're not a bad person if you're not fully plant-based, but give it a shot. Let your body relax a little bit, digest, purge the things that are bad from your body so you can feel lighter, make better decisions, connect with better energies. Also, be mindful, and you said this before about vibrations, but check your assumptions, check where you're going through in your mind. If you're going somewhere that's going to cause a crash, don't do that. Pick up a book, call a friend, go outside, hug a tree, drink a glass of water. Do the things that will really, really magnetize the best possible things to you. And also sleep. Sleep more than you did last night. If you're getting 3 hours, please tell me you're not getting just 3. Get more like 4 or 5. If you're getting 5 or 6, go a little further. Take an hour earlier and go to sleep a little earlier. These are all just things that we want you to give it a shot to put into your life, into your daily motion. And I quite guarantee there's going to be a difference. Thank you, Lara, for joining us today. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Chase.
Always connected. We can reach out whenever we like. And everyone else on the Daily Huddle, have a grand day. Be spectacular and show the world your magic. Peace.
Thank you. That was amazing.